Okay, you're live.
Okay then, all right. We're all right. We are live. We are live with our off the cuff stuff. Oh, I feel as if I've been sitting in front of this this camera for days. But not really, have I? I mean, we did our show this morning. We didn't. We have our lovely Bridget this morning. I don't know how many of you saw this morning's show. That I'm not sure you recorded a show, but anyway, Uh, right, it's off the cuff. So, all right. So, off the cuff means we can talk about anything we like. It also means that anybody who joins us, you guys can talk about anything you like as well. Of course, it would be good, like the same as when you go to visit a friend and you're sitting in the living room and you've got yourself a nice drink of whatever. Could be water, could be vodka, could be anything. And, and then you all start talking and sort of honing in on a subject and joining on a subject together. So that's how we like to do our off the cuff stuff. But before we do that, I do want to point out that, as always, I have Gregor, who is to my right side, and Chris. We have Chris from Vermont with us, manning the chat room, manning all the whatever that is, all the electrical stuff. I have no idea how to do it myself, so Chris does a brilliant job. So say hi, Chris.
Hi, everyone. Happy Friday.
Of course, it's Friday, Friday, Friday. Yes, right then. Uh, does that mean that tomorrow's story time?
It does.
Right then.
Have you
Interesting.
settled? Have you settled for your story?
No, I shall know about 2 minutes before we go we go live. Which story I've got a couple in my head, so I'll know before we go live which one I'm going to choose to tell you all. But they're all good stories. So right, so for those of you who I've been thinking about this on and off today, the rest of the day. For those of you who, oh golly, for those of you who joined us this morning, and we had Bridget, and we were talking about how easy it is to allow other people to influence us. And of course, when we're children, we have no choice, do we? But as we get older and as we sort of, grow up and grow older, we do have those choices. As children, we have to put up with whatever it is we do. But as adults, we have choices. And I mentioned briefly, I think, during the morning, and this is what I've been thinking about on and off today. There's an amazing, I don't know what it is, but there's an amazing feeling sort of that runs across this Western world of ours that, you know, if you have been abused, whether it's sexually or verbally or whatever it is when you were a child, it kind of it's almost used these days as a defense against your own bad behavior. So if you are found, or people have found, discovered abusing their children, they do plead, I was abused and I didn't know any better card. They use that. And I had it applied to me when uh, a few years ago I had a lot of money stolen. Many of you don't know this about me, but um, I had a lot of money stolen, and we caught the culprit, who did actually go to jail. But her defense, amazingly, was, well, I was misunderstood as a child and my uncle abused me. Now, I knew this girl really, really well, and she'd never once mentioned being abused sexually in any way, or even verbally abused. She came from a really nice family. They all got on fairly well together. Her husband, believe it or not, was a policeman. Um, and my father always used to say, which I don't believe, just in case anybody is listening who is a policeman, but my father always used to say, you know, find a crooked policeman and they are the best at what they do. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. But this woman, her husband was a policeman, and uh, anyway, she stole a great deal of money and she spent a great deal of money. So one would ask the question, how come the husband, when she bought him a brand new super deluxe bells and whistles motorbike, huge thing, how come he didn't realize that he certainly didn't earn the money for it, and she certainly didn't earn the money for it? So how come he didn't realize that there was something amiss? Or when she bought a new car, how come, hang on a minute, they didn't have the money for that. How come he didn't realize that something was amiss? So anyway, that's a whole other issue. But her defense, stunningly to me, stunningly and amazingly, the fact that she'd been stealing from me for quite a long time, the fact that she lied beautifully every single day, the fact that she sat across from me at the table when I made her lunch every single day, you know, her defense was, I was abused as a child. And I was so stunned by this, and I was only told this minutes before we were going to go into court, minutes before the trial started. And it was stunning to me that somebody could say, oh, well, I stole all this money because I was abused. So I had my opportunity to talk to the judge, and I asked for the opportunity to talk to him at the end of the trial rather than at the beginning, which was the usual way. I think I wanted to hear what she was saying, the reasons, the excuses, and so on and so forth for her doing what she did. And I was stunned that people were actually buying it. I was stunned that her defense attorney was, you know, giving she, you know, what a poor little creature she was. And she would never have done this had she been treated right, had she not been abused as a child. And so my rebuttal to that, you'll have all been really proud of me. My rebuttal to that was, well, I too was abused as a child. But as we get older, we have choices. And I chose to use what had happened to me in a very positive way. And I said to the judge, and I'd already written this many times in many of my books, and I said to the judge, which made his eyebrows rise up into his hair, I have to tell you, I said, I'm grateful to my parents because they taught me how not to be. So we have choices. Anyway, her defense did not weigh in her favor, but it's sort of makes me think. And then this morning, when we were talking a little bit about it this morning, it makes me think, you know, how many people use that? We had a president, I do believe, who used that argument. And people argue, and people really believe that if someone has been abused, then they will go on to be abusers themselves. Did I lose you, Chris, there?
No, you're still here.
Sorry.
Your video's off, though.
I'm sorry. Wait a minute here. Oh, golly. I don't know why it's off, I'm sure. Shall I go out and come back in then?
Yeah, go ahead. We'll be waiting here for you.
Sorry about that, everybody.
So there we go, folks. Do let us know your thoughts about what Rosemary's talking about today. And if you have any examples, I'm sure she'd love to hear them. Let's see, we'll get Rosemary back on here.
Hi, I'm actually just going to text my daughter. She's written, I love you. So I'm just going to say, I'm working. It's a live show, everybody. It's off the cuff stuff. So, you know, this is how it is. And so anyway, so yeah, I've always been amazed at, you know, how many people use that excuse. It's almost, and we had a president who used it. We've had politicians who have used it. We've had supposedly educated and intelligent people who have used this excuse. But uh, my my thought is, rightly or wrongly, whether you agree or whether you don't, um, my thought is that for those who have been abused, truly abused, um, you know, you absolutely know how painful it is. You absolutely know how awful it is. You absolutely know that you would never, ever do to somebody else what was done to you, because it is so dreadful and it is so painful. Now, I know there are exceptions. I know there are, people who have been severely abused and their minds are turned or twisted or whatever. I'm fully aware of that. But I'm talking about the ordinary people, the politicians of this world who say, well, I had sex in the Oval Office with this person and this person because, look, I had an awful childhood. It was awful. It's a joke, but what is worse is I can remember sitting at a dinner party once where there were a nice group of really intelligent, smart people who were arguing that, yes, they could see that that was right. Now, I wonder, is it me? I'm wondering, is it me? And I don't think it is. But maybe you would argue in defense of that attitude. Maybe you would argue in defense of that argument. But I know, having been hurt and having been destroyed in so many ways, my childhood being destroyed, not me, because I'm too strong and I'm too tough and so on. But I know that there are people out there who suffer because of that abuse and suffer years and years and years later. But to do it to somebody else when it's been done to you, and to know how painful it is to do it to somebody else, that's not retaliating. That's not a product of somebody else's actions towards you. That is that horrible mean streak, or that cruel streak that is in someone, to have to, it's like some kid pulling the wings off of a bird or something. It's just mean. It's horrible. Anyway, I'm going to shut up now. So, Chris, why don't you sort of give your opinion? I'm really looking forward to what other people think about this, because I'm always up for anybody to argue with me or to disagree with me, because I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying that this is my opinion.
Well, so far, everyone in the chat room is agreeing with you, Rosemary, and I have a lot of comments from them.
Go
Do you
for it
want
then.
do you want me to start there?
Yeah,
Okay.
let's go. Yeah.
All right. Let me scroll back up to the top because I had a lot coming in here. It's absolutely correct, and I know from experience, unfortunately. This is what Christina says.
Okay.
Maggie thinks it has to do with ethics. And
I don't know
also,
actually what that means, Maggie. So, so anyway, keep going.
and also, there are many people who have challenges that don't steal or mistreat the trust put in
Yes.
them.
Yeah,
Tammy says
absolutely.
she 100% agrees. Lori says, exactly, Rosemary. I'm definitely everything that my family is not. Thank you for putting the words to it.
Well,
Uh,
it's good that we're getting some agreements. Keep going.
Judith says, we have all been abused to one degree or another, or
So
so
true.
it seems.
That's true, Judith. I believe that.
Uh,
I think I do believe that. Some of us less so than others. Yes, but yes, absolutely.
Amy says, yes, I agree. We are all responsible for our actions. Samantha says, it's used in every case in Australia. I'm with you, Rosemary. You didn't like it happening to you, so why would you hurt anyone else?
Right, right. To me, it really doesn't make sense, because if you truly were abused, you know the pain, and you know the pain well enough to never inflict it onto somebody else. So either people are lying about the abuse, using it as an excuse, and it saddens me, you know, to hear you say that they use it in every case in Australia. I think it's used very commonly here in the States as well. I'm not so sure about England, but probably so. It seems to me that it's uh, I don't know, the mentality of, if I show myself as a victim, people are going to feel sorry for me and let me off the hook. Um, and whether they are a victim or not, and often they are not nearly so. If you are a victim, why then are you going around making other people victims? I don't get it. So, you know, I also don't think, even if that is the case, even if someone has been abused, no matter how badly, it is no excuse, in my opinion, uh, for them to be let off the hook, or to have sympathy, or for somebody to fight for them or fight for their rights because the poor thing was abused. In fact, I think they should be punished more severely for knowing what it feels like and still being cruel enough or mean enough or whatever it is to do it to somebody else. So I don't think that it should be used as an excuse. I mean, you know, years and years ago, well, in the Native American culture many years ago, let's say in the 1800s or so, and they had their own form of justice. If you did something to them, they'd do it back to you. That was the end of it. You know, in this day and age, it's almost as if nobody wants to make anybody culpable anymore. Nobody wants to make anybody responsible anymore. It's like, oh, you know, the poor thing. You know, let's you know, I mean, I could say, oh, look, my mother kicked me, but verbally, emotionally, mentally, and physically. Therefore, it's okay for me to kick the dog. Of course, it's not. Of course, it isn't. So I know that's putting it in simple terms, but you know, I really am curious as to you know, this victim mentality, which seems to be getting to be the norm. Um, and you know, I personally, you know, I don't get it, because I refuse to be a victim, and I struggle and try to help and to guide other people to come out of that victim mentality and to understand you do have the strength to fight that, and nobody needs to be a victim. Now, having said that, also, I know that there are people who are caged. I know there are people who are captured. I know that there are young girls who are stolen. I know all of that stuff. But I think if we were to teach our youngsters, whatever happens to you, you know, if your freedom is taken away, if you are abused and you have no control over that, nobody can control your mind. They cannot get into your mind. They can do what they like to you physically, but they cannot ever control your mind. And I think, you know, it's up to us to teach our children that, you know, no matter what happens, we are strong enough to overcome. What do you think, Chris?
Um, I'm trying to look up something right now to quote for you, but Eric's comment is, I experience these kinds of unprincipled excuses often with people around me currently. I truly feel for you. The way I can get around these experiences is to realize that the universal law comes in, and also when these people stand in the light when they pass, they see and judge themselves. It does little for me, but I've learned and moved on with positive growth, hopefully by then.
Good, brilliant, brilliant. I like it.
And then Judith was continuing, allowing abuse to be an acceptable reason or excuse started back in the 60s in courts.
Oh, it did. Oh, uh, well, I guess that comes with the hippies, rock and roll, and all that, you know, uh, freedom that everybody wants so much, but freedom comes at a price, right? And you know, are we really free? Because now we're sort of, you know, nobody holds anybody accountable anymore for the awful stuff. Prison sentences are lighter. You know, people are, you know, they're sentenced for to 20 years, and before you know it, they're out in 10. What happened there? You know, you see these law and order shows, you know, well, she'll get 4 years, but she'll be out in 6 months or a year or something. What's going on with that? 6 months, if you're sentenced to 6 months, it should be 6 months. If you're sentenced to 10 years, it's because the crime fits the punishment, we hope, and you should go through the punishment. Anyway, I feel as if I'm on a soapbox now. I just wondered what everybody else would be thinking about that. And I also, what I'd like to throw in the mix here is that, when we're kids, when we're growing up, I think somewhere around the age of roughly 4 or 5 years old, and again, some of you may disagree, we know right from wrong. We absolutely know that if there's a plate of cookies on the table and we take one, we know that someone somewhere is going to be mad, or we know that, we know enough to sneak it and not let anybody see us. So we know even from that very young age that we're doing something wrong, and we make a choice. You take the cookie or you don't take the cookie. Well, as kids, of course, you're going to take the cookie. It's far too tempting. But as we get older, we know right from wrong, and we have choices. And if you continue to make the choice to go in the wrong direction, you know that sooner or later it's going to, it's going to bite you in the bum. Sooner or later, you're going to become that person that nobody wants to be around. Sooner or later, you have to start lying to cover up the choices that you make. That's not good either. So, I do believe that from a very early age, we begin to make the choices, that guide us through our lives. And as Maggie said, you have to be ethical. But the problem is that if you come from a family where the people are unethical and you've got no one to teach us, we then have to rely on our teachers, which we used to be able to rely on, but unfortunately not so much anymore, because poor teachers are, parents dump it on the teachers, because parents are not taking the responsibility. Anyway, that's me. And now somebody else started, geez.
Well, you're probably going to have to finish with the quotes that have already come up, but
Go ahead.
you asked what my comment was, and I've always absolutely loved the comment from Mahatma Gandhi, which is, you must be the change you want to see in this world.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that one applies so well to what you're talking
We
about.
must be the change. It's like, I was so pleased with Bridget this morning when I said to her, what is your relationship like with your children? Because we know what her relationship was like with her parents. What is your relationship with your children? And she said, oh, we have a great relationship. And I thought, and there is someone who, without even realizing it, determined that she was going to, allowed her mother to teach her how not to be. So she made that change, and she made that change within herself. She made me laugh because she said, I won't even buy the same detergent that my mother used to use. It was funny. But I get it also, because I allowed my parents to teach me how not to be. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about change. So let's go, Chris. I'm over to you. Let's have some of these quotes and comments.
Yes, Lee says, no one has a perfect life. Everyone should respect everyone. If you can't help, all I expect is don't hurt. So coin the phrase, if you can't help, don't hurt. Nothing justifies inflicting pain. Some people don't get it. We live in a more narcissistic society these
Yeah.
days.
That, that reminds me of the, if you the phrase, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh, Maggie says it's just an easy way out. I know of a person in his late 30s that blames his mother for all that is wrong in his life, and he takes it. I'm sorry, and she takes
She
it.
takes it, poor woman. But she has a choice too, so let's not feel too badly about that.
Truth Be Known says, hi, I read your book years ago.
Oh,
I am glad I looked you up and found you are alive now. Wow, crazy coincidence.
there are no such thing as coincidences, you know that as well as I do. Uh, and it makes me smile when people say, I've read your book, because I have written quite a few of them. So now what you have to do is you have to discover all of the other books that I've written too. Keep going, Chris.
Chris says, and I have caught myself yelling like my mom.
Oh,
I keep word catching myself and being aware and say, you are sorry to your children.
yeah, yeah. I think, I learned because I always insisted when Samantha was a little girl, if she did something or said something, then I always insisted that she say sorry, not just to me, but to anybody. But it's no good telling your children something. You teach them by example. So I was always very sure to make sure that if I said something, or if I shouted, or if I was a bit irritable, or if I treated Samantha in a way that wasn't necessarily uh, great, I would say, I'm really sorry, darling. I didn't mean to shout at you, or whatever it was. But you have to show your children by your example that they have how they have to behave.
Lori says, the comment, I hate that poor thing. That is what the liar and perpetrator of my abuse and lives thrived on.
Well, yes, yes. Well, as we said, that poor mother having to deal with the abusive son blaming her, but she has a choice. So I'm not feeling too sorry for her at all, because she should be standing up to her son and saying, "No, it's not my fault. It's you have a choice."
Christine says, I agree. The justice system is too lenient. Cheryl says, misfits aren't misfits among other misfits. That's an
Um,
interesting comment.
Well, I think it's a question of like attracting like, isn't it? And there are people. I've been to places where you're all sitting around, you're having a nice time, or you're at a dinner party or something, and you get somebody sort of bemoaning and bewailing their lot, playing the victim card, as I call it, and then somebody else joins in, and yeah, well, that's me, and I'm thinking, oh, I don't have time for this. I just don't have time for it. And what I do when people do that victim thing, or they're moaning and complaining, I just turn and walk away. I just absolutely can't deal with it. I just, I I have no comment, and I'm not going to waste my breath or my energy. So I just walk away from it. And I think that's what we have to do eventually. If you know somebody who does play that victim card on a regular basis, just if you're not there, they can't talk at you, can they? So that's my feeling, is if I remove myself, they can go and complain to somebody else or not.
Well, that goes really in line with what you've talked about for many years about termite mentality.
Yeah. Yes. Well, this is what I teach my students, Chris, as you know, being a student of mine. Um, this termite mentality. It's I grew up with it. So my mother would say something, or sometimes my one of my sisters or my siblings would say something, and it's like this little comment that is designed to throw in the seed of doubt. So, you might have a relationship with your sister that is a good relationship. And then your mother will come along and she'll say something like, well, your sister told me this and this. Whether it's true or not, that little comment, that little seed of doubt in somebody else, or somebody you thought was you had a good relationship with, um, that good friend of yours who says to you, are you sure your husband isn't having an affair, or are you sure your wife isn't deliberately trying to get you out of the house or something? That those good friends that do those little things, they put the seed of doubt into your mind. And if you recognize that they're like termites, maybe they're unhappy in their own lives, so they've got to nibble away at yours, and they nibble and nibble and nibble with little things, little things. And if you call them out on it, and I bet you've all had this experience, right? You call somebody out on it, and immediately their immediate response will be, I was only kidding. I was only joking. They jump back on the wall and they sit on the wall. They said, no, no. Oh, no, no. I was only kidding. I was only joking. But that those little seeds of doubt have then been planted. And these are what I call this people who have termite mentality. Oh, she looks so pretty. Um, it's a shame that she wears her hair like that. Don't you think? And some of the things that she says about you when you're not around, and it's like there's that little seed of doubt. There's that little termite mentality nibbling away, creating doubt, creating worry, and these people are everywhere. They're all over the place. They're everywhere. So our job is to recognize when it happens and just smile and nod and say, oh, well, if my husband is having an affair, I guess it's his choice, right? Um, just throw it right back at them. Don't let them see that you're affected by it. Don't allow that seed of doubt to fester within you. It's not so easy to do, I know, but yeah, termites, those people who I call them little termites, and they really can create, they can destroy. When you get groups of people, you have teams of people or groups of people, and you're all supposed to be pulling together, and you get one little termite who turns around to one of the team members and says, did you see what she just did? Did you hear what she just said? And all of a sudden, the team, which has been very solid, starts to sort of break up a little bit because now somebody's put a seed of doubt. Well, I don't think she helped you nearly enough. Uh, Seed of doubt, termite mentality. You all recognize that, right?
Yeah, definitely. I'm reminded within the last day or so, I saw something online that said, be so positive that you drive the negatives away from you.
Yes.
I loved that. I absolutely loved that.
Yeah. Well, that's what we try to do, don't we? We try to do that with these shows. We try to show where it can happen, and we try to show that if we're strong enough and we can recognize. I think that the difficulty is, and especially with termite mentality, the difficulty is recognizing it, right? Recognizing that somebody's doing it. But once you recognize it, when you start to see it and you recognize it, boy oh boy oh, but yeah, then you can't unrecognize it. Then you have to stand up and you have to deal with it, and you can do it. We can all do it. We can all turn away from it. um, I mean, I had a somebody I worked very close with years and years ago in publishing, who would take every opportunity she could to say things about my daughter. And it had happened that she didn't realize this, but one time we're on the phone and I put the speaker on, and my daughter was in the room listening to what she was saying about her, and my daughter was like, oh, that's not true. I didn't do that, or I didn't say that. But some of the things that I was told, and some of the things this woman said, my daughter sort of hung her head a bit and said, well, yeah, I did say that. What was it designed to do? It was designed to put a wedge between us. And that's because there's jealousy on the part of that person. You put a wedge between somebody. But I actually eventually looked this person in the eye, literally looked her in the eye and said, don't you ever try to come between my daughter and I again, ever. Keep what you know, keep it to yourself. Don't throw your negativity onto me. Sometimes you just have to stand up and say it, don't you?
Yeah, I think before we keep going down this sort of negative track, I'd love it if we could turn the conversation around in the chat room to be more so, how did you change, these negative Nellies into something positive? Did you actually choose to not have them in your life? Could you have a frank conversation with them?
Well, yeah, I think I'm sure that a lot of the comments are understanding, agreeing, explaining circumstances that happened to you. And I think that's a good thing, in that you've got to recognize, as I've said, you've got to recognize that it's happening to you. Once you recognize that it's happening to you, then you've got a choice, haven't you? My way of doing things, if anybody is interested in knowing, My way is I will call that person, and or if I'm depending. Usually, if we're in a crowd, I'll let it go unless it's something that's so bad, and then I'll say, and I'll literally say, no matter where I am, to that person, I don't think that was very nice. What you said just was simply not very nice, and I'll call them on it. And you know, of course, nobody likes you when you show them a mirror, do they? Nobody likes that. But very often I'll call someone and I'll say, can I meet with you? Because we need to have a conversation. I don't know why, but people get very scared when I do that. People, people, people start to tremble a bit. They think, oh my gosh, what is you know, I'm going to get a telling off or something. But you know, having a conversation with someone face to face and telling them how you feel and saying, you know, I understand why you're doing it, but please don't do it again. Please don't do it to me again. And you know, I think that's the way to sort of turn that negative, Chris, into a positive, because by being positive yourself and by dealing with something head on in a good way, in a nice way, you don't have to scream and rage. I find that when you're polite and you say, please don't do that again, I don't know why, but it intimidates people even more so than if you yell at them. Because then if you yell at them, they can yell back at you, can't they? So, you know, I think that sort of being nice, being, you know, understanding we're all human and understanding that probably the people who are being termites don't even realize that they're being termites a lot of the time. So turning it into a positive by saying, no, 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 none of that negative behavior. Let's have the positive behavior. And I think that people do respond to that.
Well, and I'm also called to mind, I mean, there are some of us who are either introverts or quiet, and we think to ourselves, you know, the whole adage of turn the other cheek, and we let it go and we let it go and we let it go until we blow. The point I want to make is the difference between responding aggressively versus assertively. That's a fine line and an important line.
Well, as I just said, you know, saying to somebody, please don't do that. But there is, you know, that old phrase, Chris, nip it in the bud. Pinch it
Yes.
before it starts. Pinch it before you allow it to get out of hand. Say something immediately. Give the benefit of the doubt. You probably didn't mean to hurt me, but when you said so and so, that's exactly what you did. And please don't do it again. Give somebody the benefit of the doubt. You know, don't attack them and don't wait, as you've just said, Chris. Don't wait until you're all fired up and you're really annoyed and you puff yourself up because now this is the third time they've said it and the fourth time, the fifth time, and boom, and off you go. And then you are going to deal with it aggressively. But unfortunately, then the person on the receiving end is thinking, what was that about? Because you haven't said anything before. You haven't nipped it in the bud. And they don't even realize what they've been doing. So give the benefit of the doubt when you start to, you know, to say to somebody, uh, you know, I love you very much, but I don't like your behavior, you know, and it works. So try that.
I think you gain a lot of respect that way. And if it was, let's say, a water cooler situation, when you stand up, the other people who are sitting back wishing they would say something suddenly feel empowered and they agree with you. And then you've got the support you need to do the standing up.
That's right. I mean, you know, some people don't back you up, obviously. I can remember a situation that I had when I was literally attacked, verbally attacked by one of my students. His wife sat by passively and allowed him to do it. The worst thing was that all of my other students sat back passively and allowed him to do it. Now, they were probably thinking to themselves, so I'm giving the benefit of the doubt, they were probably thinking to themselves, well, Rosemary can handle this. But actually, having support and standing up and had, even if only one or two of them had stood up and said, hey, you know, don't speak to Rosemary like that. That's if you're going to say something, be respectful. If somebody had stood up, that would have been great, and nobody stood up. But and I remember leaving the pub, and I remember sort of leaving, getting my keys, and walking out. And when I got home, within a short time, uh, one of my students, who was a newer student, she and her husband came and knocked on my door just to see, are you okay? Now, they didn't defend me either. They didn't support me either. But nevertheless, they came and just to check. And we became great friends because they took the time to say, are you okay? But I know that there are so many people who really wish afterwards that they'd said something, but either they're too shy, or they're, they don't quite know if they should or if they shouldn't. But I think that if more of us were to speak out when things aren't so nice, uh, those aren't so nice things would happen less and less, because people would think twice before they spoke out for fear of somebody calling them on it.
Christine says, that is exactly what good moms should say. I can relate to so much in today's off the cuff session.
Well, good. I'm glad. I'm glad about that, Christina.
Lori,
Okay.
s- Lori says, I had to be brave enough to watch people walk away for standing up to the negative and termite mentality. They didn't like it and tried to turn it around to be my bad on me. They ranted all their how I hurt them and tried to guilt me. I said, bye bye.
Yeah. I can remember a few years ago, I had a purge. I for whatever reason, I decided, I'm done with anyone in my life or in my space who is negative, because it just brings you down. It's hard to deal with it. You expend such a lot of energy. Um, unfortunately, some of those people were very important to me and to my career, but I had to be true to who I was, and I had to say, am I going to allow this negativity, or am I just going to work with people who are willing to be positive? And even if they struggle with that positivity, at least they're trying to be positive. And I think what we have to do in our lives is to sort of get rid of the negative. And if that means letting some people go, then that's what we have to do. Get rid of the negative and strive for the positive. And I think if you're a positive person yourself, and you go out there and you're exuding that positiveness, I think that, people are drawn to people who are positive, are drawn to you. So, yeah.
I can remember in the years when my sons were young, I can remember one situation specifically. Uh, the oldest was pouting a little bit in his room, and I was vacuuming, except I was whistling and singing to music while I was vacuuming. And he opened his door and he came out and he said, can you cut out that noise? So I shut off the vacuum thinking that's what he was talking about. And then I started singing and, whistling to the music again. And he opens his door again. No, that's the noise I want you to cut out. Because let's face it, when you're negative, you kind of want to wallow and stay in that. And it drives people nuts to have somebody happy.
And I think if a kid's going into his room to pout, it's because he's looking for attention. And when you don't give it to him, and when you seem to be really, really happy, uh, well, I don't suppose it goes down very well, does it, when you're a kid? But I mean, I think that when we buy into the negativity, it's a horrible thing. And I remember my daughter one Christmas. I'm not sure she'll like me for saying this, but anyway, she was with her boyfriend, and every Christmas we used to have anybody who was on their own. I would invite, and they could come for a day, 2 days, a week, whatever it was. Anybody who was on their own, or I had two friends who were mothers. They had children. One had three, one had two, and they would always be invited. They didn't have to come, but they didn't have a spouse, they didn't have a partner, they didn't have support, and if they wanted to come for Christmas, that's what we would do. Anyway, this particular year, my daughter came this, sort of about a month before Christmas, and she said, "Mum," she was very serious, and she's, "Mum, I've decided that I think it's a really, really good idea that we don't invite anybody else for Christmas. It's just me, the boyfriend, I've forgotten his name, and you, and I don't think we should invite anybody else. And I said, well, I'm sorry, but I've already invited people, and I'm not going to see people be alone by themselves at Christmas time. So she, for whatever reason, she said, well, that's fine. It's them or me. And, I'm a great believer. Don't ever put me in that position, because if you put me in that position, it means I can't choose you, because you wouldn't have put me in that position if you cared about me, not cared about my feelings. So I remember, sort of step back, I looked at this child of mine, and I probably blamed the boyfriend and her, but she was adamant it's them. It's them or me. And I said, okay then. And I didn't say anymore. I just, okay. And I nodded, and she sort of, she said, what do you mean, okay? So I said, okay, it's fine then. You have to do your own thing. And she said, what do you mean? What do you mean? And I said, it's them. I'm choosing them because you're forcing me to do something that I don't want to do, and I'm not going to let you manipulate me into it. I really want you to come for Christmas, but I do understand if you prefer not to. Well, she came for Christmas, and she never tried it again. She never actually tried that again. But I think that when people, put you in that position where you've got to choose, they've already lost, because you think less of them for it. And even if you choose them, I remember a friend of mine, she very proudly told me that her husband was a big cricketer, and in fact he was the captain of the cricket team. And she said, I've told him, it's my birthday, and if he chooses the cricket match over me, that's it. And so, of course, she guilted him. He stayed home with her for a birthday, but she'd lost, hadn't she? Because now there's resentment from him, quite rightly, really. There's resentment from him because she made him choose. And, that's a sure way to lose a friendship, and it's a sure way to lose a husband. If you continually saying it's the them or me, at some point, whether they verbalize it or not, at some point you lose. You've already lost once you've said that. So there's another interesting little factor right there.
Gail says, I agree that healthy adults realize they do have a choice in how they respond and behave. Your comments about what has become the norm in society made me think of the phrase, hurting people hurt people. It sounds right, but now I think it helped give people an excuse to continue behaving badly.
Yes.
I will let go of that phrase and replace it with, once an adult or a person who knows better, there is a responsibility to make better choices. Thank you
Good.
for your transparency.
I love that you said that. You're very welcome. Thank you for joining us, and thank you. Yeah, good job, you. Well done. I always say, if we could just reach one person, then we've done our job, right, Chris? If we can just reach that one person, or touch that one person, make a difference in a good way. So shall we stop now? Because I think we've achieved that.
It is nice to build a community here that everybody is here to support each other.
It is, really. Do we have people from, where do we have people from? Anybody saying where they're from? Because we love to know where you're all from.
I see Brisbane. I know we had Scotland early on. Let's see if somebody else has said. We've got some Canadians. Scrolling up near the top here. I want to think there was somebody who was 1 o'clock in the morning when we started. I forget what.
That might be Italy, or it could be England, or anyway. Never mind. Not to worry. Just keep going with the comments.
Okay, we did have Nova Scotia.
All right.
Yeah. All right. California. People are starting to write those in. Chris wrote an interesting comment I think you hang out with the wrong people sometimes, question mark.
It's talking to me.
Yeah.
Oh, um, no, Chris, but I'd love to know why you think that. Why do you think that? Now you're making me wonder. I hang out with great people. I totally have gotten rid of all the negativity in my life. I won't tolerate negativity around me because, I don't want it to affect me, and it will affect if you sort of stay around negativity for long enough. It will affect you and it will bring you down. And I'm not letting that happen. And I have great friends. Luckily, I have great friends all over the world. And so, I mean, Chris and I hang out. She's a good person. Tell me why you think that, my lovely, because I'm wondering, have you misunderstood something that I've said to you?
We'll wait for Chris to respond. Elke's on from the Netherlands, and Belgium was the one country that I had forgotten
Oh, okay.
earlier.
Okay. Wow. Well, this is great. We love it when we sort of travel around the world, don't we? Uh, and it's lovely that you all should join us. So, any other comments, Chris?
No, not really. And you've come up against the hour too, Rosemary.
Yeah, I realize that. So,
Oh, wait. Chris has the comment and the answer. No, I was referring to the termite mentality people you were talking about. There
yeah.
seem to be a lot of them.
Oh, every not every day, but I was at the supermarket yesterday. Okay, so listen to this. So the supermarket was practically empty, and I had, let me say, probably 20 items in my cart, and I went to the register that said, speedy checkout, 15 items, but there was nobody in the store, and the girl was just sort of, behind the counter twiddling and so on, twiddling her thumbs. And usually when you do that and you say, do you mind if I come here, don't have such a lot, they say, sure, yeah, I'm not busy, sure, of course. This woman looked at me and she said, well, no, I can only take 15 items. So I said, yes, but you're not very busy, and I would really love it if you could take. And I smiled at her and I tried to be nice and sort of get my own way, of course. And so she looked at me, she looked down her nose at me and she said, well, I suppose you're going to do it anyway, aren't you? I said,
Wow.
whoa. And I said, whoa. And I laughed and I smiled and I said, well, I am. And so I put my stuff up there, and she was sort of throwing the stuff in. She actually, I bought some pastry, and she actually was so fiercely putting it in the bag that she threw it and it landed on the floor and didn't say anything. I thought, she's obviously having a bad day. And this is what I'm talking about when you give people, try to give people the benefit of the doubt. So I just said to her at some point, has it been a tough day for you? And she sort of looked at me and I said, I don't know how you do it. I honestly don't, because I really meant it. I don't know how you stay in this store and do this all day, every day, because it would be the worst thing for me. And she said, well, it's so hot. And I said, yes, I can see that it is really hot. And I'm thinking, we are in Florida. I said, you'd think they'd put the air on a little bit cooler for you, wouldn't you? When do you finish? When do you? And so I turned it around. But that termite, that looking down the nose, well, I suppose you're going to do it anyway, aren't you? And I said, yeah. And you know what? You're right. I am going to do it anyway. But I'm going to do it with a positivity and a smile on my face. And by the time I left the register, I said, thank you so much for your help. And I do hope things get better for you. I hope it gets a bit cooler. Or I hope you get an early evening and put your feet up. And she's cheerfully waving me on. She's looking puzzled. She can't understand how she's suddenly gone from being really miserable and negative to now smiling and, you too, have a good evening, you too. So there are people like that wherever we go. There are people like that, and we have to try to see if we can change them and bring a little bit of sunshine into their lives too. So giving the benefit of the doubt, instead of walking around and say, gosh, she was miserable, did you see what a horrible person she was, instead of doing that, try and work at it and try and work hard at bringing a smile to somebody's face. It doesn't always work, but at least you've tried and it makes you feel good.
It reminds me of some of the angel actions that you have listed in your book, Angels
Yeah,
in Training.
yeah, yeah. And you know, one of those angel actions, I think we probably leave with this, but one of those angel actions is, you know, when we talk about angel actions, I suggest people try to help their angels because they must be really, really busy doing all sorts. So if we can be an angel in training and try and help them by doing something nice for someone else or by being nice to somebody else, because you never know you never know what's going on behind the scenes of that person who sits behind the cash register at the supermarket. You never know, she might have a husband who's ill, or she might have a child who's disabled. You never know what's going on with people and what causes them to be so sad, so unhappy. And of course, there are some people who just like it anyway. But giving the benefit of the doubt means you can work hard at trying to change somebody's life, because you really don't ever know. And all you have to do, if you can, is to leave a little trail of sunshine. And I think that that's a way of us helping our angels and taking angel actions. But always remember, everybody out there, one of those angel actions that I absolutely stress that we should do at least once a week for ourselves is to do an angel action for ourselves. Make ourselves something really delicious. Make ourselves, sort of sit and watch a movie or get a really good book to read. Spoil ourselves a little bit once a week. Give an angel action to ourselves, because boy, oh boy, do all of us ever deserve that. All right, well, that's it. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everybody. I have to now go and call my grandson, because my daughter and my grandson were calling me earlier on. So I've got to go and call them and see what's going on and say goodnight to my darling boy, oh gosh, I love this child. I know you grandparents out there love your children too. But what we have to do is we have to strive to be the best example that we can be for our children, and especially for our grandchildren, because they rely on us to teach them and to show them the way. So for all of you out there in Scotland, in Australia, wherever you are in the world, for all of you out there, a big thank you for joining me in our Off the Cuff tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Story time, story time. I wonder what I'm going to tell you tomorrow. I wonder what kind of story we're going to talk about tomorrow. And then, of course, on Sunday, I know that some of you think, oh, yes, that's right, she's making creme patissiere. Well, I'm actually not. I've changed my mind. I got it wrong. I'm going to make creme anglaise. And that's just a fancy way of saying English cream, English custard is what I'm going to make. I'm going to show you how to make it and what to do with it when you've made it. So that's on Sunday morning at noon, Sunday morning, noon Eastern Standard Time. So until if I see you tomorrow or Sunday, until I see you again, thank you, darlings. Thank you very much for joining us. I've had fun with you guys. I hope you've had fun with us. I'd like to say a big thank you to Chris once again, always available, always there for us. And I'd also like to say a big thank you, especially to Grey Eagle, who, as always, guides and steers us. So please, all of you, have a very, very, very blessed rest of the day or night or whatever time it is in whichever country that you're in. Have a very, very blessed rest of the day, and have a very blessed weekend also. Bye-bye.